assassination attempt has been attempted on a former president and a presumptive nominee for president for the Republican Party. This has been committed on July 13th, 2024. And that's terrible. And I think that should have been the reaction that everyone should have had when it happened. But we are not even 24 hours after that. And everybody already knows what happened. Everybody already knows why it happened. And I have a problem with that. So before we actually talk specifically about Donald Trump, I'd like to take maybe about 5 to 10 minutes and just talk generally about this. And yeah, just sort of before we actually go to the specifics, let's just talk generally. I'm Daniel, and I'm actually from Slovakia, which just had, well, about a month ago, had an assassination attempt on the prime minister. And so actually leader of the nation, not in this case when it's a presumptive nominee, although most likely nominee. So I kind of know what's going to happen. I kind of knew what's going to happen right after that. And I know what's going to happen in the next few weeks because I already experienced that. So joining me today is James Valliant. Hey, James, how are you doing?
Okay.
Anything you'd like to say about what I said before I go a bit further? Again,
Um,
not specifically about Trump. Let's talk about that later.
I think that America has reached a very dangerous point in terms of its political rhetoric. Knowing the exact causal relationship between the context of that rhetoric and what happened, we need still some specific information. But we do know at this point is that the Democrats, with I'm
No,
not going
no, we'll go that later. Just
to, okay. I just know that when you call someone a Nazi and
no, no, James, again, let's later. We are just talking generally now.
it's a horrible, unjustifiable act which murdered a Republican activist at a rally, critically injured two of them, and almost came within a millimeter or two of killing Donald Trump. And the person was an intelligent person. He was a 20-year-old person from Pennsylvania who acquired apparently this rifle from his father. He was obviously trained in how to use it. He obviously had cased the area very carefully. He was an intelligent person in terms of his ability to get up there, set up, and come within 2 millimeters of killing the president, which would have thrown American politics into further chaos and been tremendously destabilizing. Obviously, murder is a horrific act. It is unjustifiable, morally speaking. And fortunately, this monster got killed in the very process of this despicable act. Um, and it's unfortunate that we've reached a state where people on social media today are laughing and joking about it and thinking that Trump should have
No,
died.
okay, again, this will happen with everything. Random people are gonna do that. When we talk about this, we have to talk about the actual prominent figures. But let's again keep that for later. We'll talk about this. So maybe just a couple more things. Again, I'd usually say, and again, despite that I'm young, I actually did have an assassination attempt on my head of state, so I know what's gonna happen in some way. So what I would say is mainly don't panic. These things usually happen by lone shooters. By definition, these happen by really crazy individuals. And I think we should be careful about drawing large scale evaluations from this just because of one person. Um, but again, we'll talk about more specifics later. So I guess I would only specify, yeah, that we don't know anything yet. We still know very little about everything. We still know very little about the person, why let's say the security failed, what happened there, why was Trump not protected properly. I think some people are
Yeah,
talking about
there's
certain
something.
failures.
May I make a comment there?
Sure.
In a few days, Trump was about to receive the Republican Party nomination for president. It's going to happen later this week. At that point, greater security would have kicked in as a matter of law. So he would have had a higher level of Secret Service protection in a matter of days. I know may just be an interesting coincidence, but it is an interesting coincidence. It indicates to me, perhaps, that this shooter knew what he was doing. That building should have been covered by a Secret Service. Their normal protocol would have had someone covering that, closing down that building, covering that building, having someone maybe perhaps on that roof, and preventing this from ever happening. That is the normal Secret Service protocol in these sorts of things. So there is something that needs to be investigated here.
Sure, well investigated.
Some kind. There
Well,
were witnesses yesterday on the ground who were saying,
okay, James, we are going there again. Let's still wait. I don't want to go there yet. So I'd only say, again, similar. I mean, there were assassination attempts or on actual presidents. So I don't think you can already jump to the conclusion that this was just because of not enough security. Again, I would say again, I'm speaking just from what we know now. It doesn't seem like it was a lack of security, just the protocols were not followed.
There was a security lapse for sure. On the face of it, there's a security lapse here that could have been, a hole that could have been plugged. There was a clean shot within rifle distance that was left open from a higher location, from behind where Trump was speaking. That should have been handled. Now, they're saying that Trump did not request additional security, but it is the current administration that, of course, runs the Secret Service outfit. They've denied Secret Service protection to Robert Kennedy, the most important of the third party candidates. His father and uncle were assassinated, and by ideologues, by the way. Lone communist, I still think, is the best answer for Kennedy, Lee Harvey Oswald, who was a communist who'd been to Russia and Cuba. Sirhan, who killed Robert Kennedy's father, was ideologically motivated. The assassin of Martin Luther King was ideologically motivated. The assassination of Abraham Lincoln was ideologically motivated. The shooting of Steve Scalise and the Republicans several years ago at that baseball game was ideologically motivated. However crazy these people are, that does not mean that they're not ideologically motivated.
Sure, I think I would agree. But again, I don't think we should look for rational reasons when it comes to these people.
Oh, there could be
assassination
totally
attempt
irrational.
is inherently irrational.
And counterproductive. One of the worst things you can do is assassinate your opponent. Jim's law of history, as I've repeated, I think even on this channel, is that assassination is one of the most counterproductive strategies we can do. It was the assassination of Julius Caesar that practically guaranteed the Roman Republic was to become an empire. The assassination of Abraham Lincoln put the kibosh on a more moderate reconstruction. It is the assassination of John F. Kennedy practically turned him into a god. It is counterproductive. And this will, I think, only help Trump's campaign, the fact that he survived. But it's hard for me to believe that it's some kind of Trump supporter. He came within millimeters of dying. So,
again, we don't know anything about him. We don't know his motivation. We might not even ever learn about his motivations. Maybe they'll find some, especially when it came to school shooters, they usually had some sort of manifesto. So maybe we will find something more about it. But again, and I already see this in the chat. Everyone's emotional. Everyone wants to jump to conclusions, jump to exactly knowing what has happened. And I think the main thing I would say is, hold on. And, someone is yelling at me at caps lock. We know of it. I mean, again, this has been one day, and claiming that you know what has happened, I think you are denying reality. You are denying the process.
I think that while it is true that we need to know and learn the motivations and the degree of this guy's craziness and irrationality, we need to know his political motivations, and those things we still do not know. That is absolutely true. On the other hand, it is existentially, if Trump is an
let's just we will go to this right after, but let's just discuss one thing.
I do have a lot of evidence, is my point, Daniel.
Okay, we can discuss
from which
it later.
Reasonable inferences
we can just give me 2 more minutes.
Sure.
So I just wanted to do one more bridge thing, just so we can sort of have this this has happened before. And the question is, and this might be a controversial question, but when is political violence okay? And I think me and James have talked a little bit about this, and we would probably generally agree once there is no peaceful means of, let's say, changing the system, changing no free elections or very corrupt elections, censorship. I think there's at least one more or one. Can you remind me, James?
Censorship is by far the most important of those elements, it seems to me, because if there is at least mostly or substantive free speech and a peaceful means of changing the government, we're not in a moral position to overthrow the government, according to Ayn Rand. Ayn Rand herself articulated this as, in effect, her essential position on when it is appropriate to try and overthrow your government. And trying to overthrow your government, and even in that context, I would say an assassination of your enemy is probably going to be counterproductive. You'll make him a martyr. You'll inspire your enemies. But killing your enemy and your enemy's leaders, doing an actual war, a civil war, a revolution, really can only be justified when the country has reached a state where a peaceful change, the possibility of peaceful change, has been eliminated by the institution of a substantial censorship. Yeah.
So
this was morally unjustified, no matter what his ideology or how crazy he was. It's just wrong. An innocent person was killed. 2 people are still in critical condition, and
so,
Trump.
James, you're jumping. I just want to finish on this. So yeah, we agreed that there is a case for political violence. In a sense, America was founded on political violence. They tried the democratic method, or in a sense, the representative method. They tried to appeal to the crown. They tried several ways of basically trying to resolve their problems peacefully, but it basically boiled into a revolution because they thought there is no other way of doing this. Now let's actually talk. So is America at that point when there is no, let's say, peaceful transition of power, or let's say peaceful way of changing? James doesn't agree.
Absolutely.
I don't agree either. I think there is still a long way to go until we, hopefully a long way to go until we get to I hope it never happens, when America is at a point that the only way to resolve this conflict is some sort of revolution. And
the world will be screwed when we reach that point.
Yeah, so I don't think we are there, and this is a long way of actually getting to the topic. That's why I'd say I don't think I started this show by saying it's horrible. This shouldn't have happened. This is an action of a crazy person.
A horrific murder and an attempt to murder at least Donald Trump and perhaps others, which did kill and seriously injure people other than Trump, who came within a couple of millimeters of that bullet dying. This is not going to cause me to vote for Trump. I am still concerned about January 6th. I do not think Trump acted appropriately in the wake of his own electoral defeat last time. But in the wake of that electoral defeat, and frankly, I do believe Trump, I was saying.
So actually, let me, because I want to make that point too. So let's just keep at it. I don't think this action should change how you vote. I don't think nothing has fundamentally changed about Trump. This an assassination attempt doesn't make someone a good person. Now I'm going into conspiracy, but let's say this was like an actual attempt from President Biden or something there. Then I mean, by that time, we would probably be at a point where revolution is probably the only way. But okay, I shouldn't have even said that. I'm just going into conspiracy.
You're going to be giving us on both sides. So we're going to get conspiracy theories.
Let's go back 30 seconds. Yeah. I didn't say that.
Okay.
So yeah, this hasn't. I don't think this hasn't changed anything fundamentally about Trump, or I don't think it has changed anything fundamentally about Biden, about whoever the third candidates are. So if this has influenced how you vote, I think you should check your premises. I think you should definitely now everyone's gonna be emotional. Me and James have argued about 20 minutes before the show even went live, so everyone's gonna be emotional right now. So I think the best thing to do is really to step back, maybe check on news every 2 days to see if any new information has came to light, and yeah, just be careful. Nothing again, we are not at a point where we need to go on streets because something
That
is
is
happening.
critical. It's critical to say that no matter how anti-Trump you are, this is a vicious, horrible, unjustifiable act, an act of murder and political violence, which is inexcusable on any moral level, And nor can we blame, frankly, I am opposed to the heat of the ideological interaction. It is non-intellectual. It's not issue focused, much less idea focused or principle focused. Politics in my country has decayed into a process of demonization, where you call your opponent evil himself, and it's effectively name calling. We were told, for example, that by leading pundits on television, that Trump's election would be the last election in American history. They compared him to Adolf Hitler. They said that he's an
Actually,
existential
James,
democracy.
for that point, can you say specifically who said it?
For example, pundits at MSNBC and CNN had said that
Specifically names.
I can't give you the specific names, but that was absolutely said.
Because
the last
I think
election in American history.
Yeah, I think it is important. The way
Well,
people
unfortunately,
talk.
I had a very busy morning, and I would have given you
No,
a
sure. I don't. I'm. You wouldn't lie.
You know
I'm
that was said, right?
So I mean, I'm believing you. I'm just gonna keep it at that.
Thank you.
I can
It's
try.
true.
I can try to search it after. But again,
Yeah.
I think because someone is saying Robert De Niro said it. Again, who cares?
Robert De Niro said it. I think
no.
It was definitely a talking head at MSNBC who said it. I believe there was a commentator on CNN who said that.
Sure.
And it was amplified by politicians. And politicians have been encouraging violence, political violence. Maxine Waters, the congresswoman, for example, said, get in their face. When you see them on the street, when you see them in a restaurant, get in their face. Senator Schumer threatened the Supreme Court. You will reap the whirlwind, he said to the Supreme Court. You will face the consequences. And political violence is being more and more appeased and sanctioned by politicians themselves as well. Saying that someone is an existential threat to democracy, okay, he is an existential, so's Biden. Now, if we're willing to say that Biden himself ignores Supreme Court decisions, Biden himself has been advocating kinds of censorship. So both sides are fascist-leaning threats to democracy. The rhetoric on the part of the Democrats has been heating up, and the two central issues that they were making the centerpiece of this campaign were, one, Trump as this existential threat to democracy, and two, abortion. Those were their issues. I grant you, January 6th had created an opening for that. But surely if you call someone Adolf Hitler, if you say that's the last election in American history, and someone believes that, they're going to think it's time to take up arms.
Okay, so and now I would only say, so I think rhetoric is important, and yeah, when people again saying this is going to be the last election, the thing about in your face, that's very contextual, because we had a similar party in Slovakia, and I think their logo was something like it doesn't translate directly, but it was something, let's go to them. And it had a sort of like a violent, like potentially violent, but no violence was committed and no one advocated for violence.
Oh, well, so there were people who were assaulted at restaurants, politicians. Senator Rand Paul was beat up.
Yeah, that's why I think
there's been an assassination attempt on a Supreme Court justice in recent years. The Supreme Court justice that was being demonized. Now, of course, the criticism does not justify all that. Democrat criticism does not justify the violence in that sense, and nor is it the causal necessity. In other words, I'm not blaming the rhetoric, because the rhetoric is not a justification for the actual doing. On the other hand, ideas have consequences. People are motivated by ideas. Even crazy people are motivated by ideas.
Yeah, and so someone brings up in the chat, the husband of Nancy Pelosi was assaulted. Yeah, and that's a
Exactly.
similar. How did the right react in that way? I mean, Donald J. Trump Jr. Sorry, has made fun of it. Has
That's
said,
disgusting too.
yeah, and so I think that's a big problem, and I think we do have a big problem when neither either side might say that we shouldn't have political violence, but when political violence does happen, a lot of people on both sides do celebrate it when it happens against their opponents. And I
They're
think
celebrating on social media right now. They're saying it's a shame he missed. 2 days ago, I read on Facebook a social media post. Get this, a social media post that says, "We don't get assassination attempts like we used to." That was just days before this happened. Days before this happened. As I say, it had been only a couple hours before this happened. I finished a podcast about how dangerously hot the rhetoric had become on both sides, how demonization had become a substitute for any kind of real substantive debate. Yeah, we're living in a world where emotions are taking over from any rational discourse, where your tribal affiliations are taking over from any rational discourse. Now, this guy could have been, seems to have been a lone nut. But on the other hand, that kind of lone nut is not being discouraged at all by the level of the heat of the rhetoric here. We have had, for example, in 2020, we had riots in the streets. Vice President Kamala Harris was justifying it. We're going to keep fighting, even though cops were getting bricks thrown at them. The Minneapolis police station was being burned. They were taking over police facilities in Portland, attacking them. And yet the left was encouraging that political violence,
uh,
specifically Kamala Harris and others,
okay,
bailing out these people out of jail, mind you.
again, and I think now I'm gonna call you out, James, a little bit. I think by saying the left encouraging this, you are, I think, attributing to the fire. By again, many times when we talk about it, we just say the left, the right, not specifying names. What could it mean? The left could mean random people on Twitter. The left could mean the president of the United States. And I think talking
I
about
mean,
this in this way is
Maxine Waters
problematic.
and Chuck Schumer. I mean, yeah, no, naming those, or consider the level of the Hamas protests that were faced. The guy could easily have been inspired by that as well. I'm not going to speculate as to what the particular motive was. I mean, he may think that Biden is the one who'd fight genocide on the part of Israel, to use that language better as well. Um, Frankly, I think it's hard for me to understand this as coming from a pro-Trump person. Trump came within millimeters of dying. Now, the conspiracy theorists on both sides are going to go crazy. It is unjustifiable, whatever the rhetoric was. But it seems to me the rhetoric is relevant. And if I were a betting man here with you, Daniel, I'd be willing to say that this guy was, from some issue or some ideological standpoint, motivated in his crazy mind to do a crazy thing, but that in his head there was some such motivation. Trump needs to be killed.
So let me actually talk about go back to the prime minister of Slovakia just to
I'm not saying Trump needs to be killed. I'm saying that was what was going on in his head, obviously.
no, I understand.
Okay.
So I've seen that apparently he's a registered Republican, but also that he has donated $15. He was young, so $15 probably was like a decent amount to some I think Democratic some sort of like committee or I don't know, action committee. I think it's what you refer them to in America.
Political
Uh,
action.
yeah. So just to because many people seem to automatically think that uh, Trump is a Republican, so it has to be someone who is ideologically opposed to him.
Well, it
And
doesn't have to be, but I'm willing
yeah,
to bet that there's some kind of anti-Trump ideological element. It's a bet. I'm just
I mean,
and I think people should. One thing you are saying that's absolutely correct is, please don't draw any big conclusions, final conclusions. But of course, our minds are still going to be working on this. And if I was willing to bet at this point, I'd be willing to bet it was someone who had an anti-Trump, political idea lodged in his head somehow. Now, I'm not blaming the
By
person.
definition, he had to be anti-Trump. I'm not sure. Oh, I really love Trump. Let me shoot at him.
Shoot at him and come that close to killing him, shooting him in the head. And by the way, keep shooting at Republican activists, one of whom is dead.
And again, even when it comes to something like shooting, I think there is, because, many people say he was a trained shooter. My question would be, why would he shoot for the head? Why wouldn't he shoot for the body, for the center of mass? Many people are saying he was shooting after that. Again,
trained snipers are often trained to hit right here at the brainstem, because that's you're gone. Shot.
Again, we don't know.
You assassinate. Your best bet is the head if you want to assassinate, if you're that good a shot, and he was pretty close. So no, the firing towards the head is, well, that's how Kennedy got assassinated, Lincoln got assassinated, etc.
And
shot in the head.
I'm not even sure if we know, because I heard again somewhere that it might have been just a shrapnel, so he didn't get Trump didn't get hit by the actual bullet, by just shrapnel.
No, it was the actual bullet.
So it was.
Here it went by, and the bullet itself, according to the doctors, are what injured.
So we know that already.
Yes, we do.
So yeah, that was again,
in fact, the evidence appears to be that if Trump had not turned his head at that moment, he'd probably be dead right now.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't played the video here, but you should definitely check it out. It's I when I was watching it, I was pretty horrified when I saw the blood. I was especially, again, I just had this we just had the assassination attempt on Prime Minister, and that one was I think for like a week we didn't know what's gonna happen, because he did get actually shot in the chest. He already had some past past operations. I think he had like some things already. So that was a stressful week for the news.
Trump will be at the Republican convention next week with his head bandaged. I'll please Rosie with another quote from the Rome series, looking like Leonidas at Thermopylae. He will be lionized and made a hero and a martyr, certainly, by the Republicans. Assassination is politically a counterproductive strategy, almost inevitably.
And with that, I think we managed to keep it generally mild, maybe not in the chat, but I would recommend
this
people.
Is a horrific act, and if the shooter did have anti-Trump motivations, which it does seem to me to be a very reasonable thought here, it's going to be proved counterproductive, almost certainly. He was a vile monster who tried to do this. I don't care what your opinion is about Trump.
And I think with that, I'd say keep calm. This is gonna be rough few weeks, I imagine. So make sure not to, make sure not to base
campaign. Yeah,
make sure you don't do something you'll regret for the rest of your life in the next couple of days.
And don't initiate violence. This is the problem. We reach a point where irrationality dominates the discussion. Irrationality will dominate behavior.
So I guess I haven't talked about why I even dislike Trump. So I guess maybe we'll make another video for it. But generally,
I like him too.
Yeah, generally, I'd say it's probably not a good idea to say you like or dislike someone right after there was an assassination attempt done on them. So I'm actually glad I haven't talked about what I think about him that much.
Everyone knows my view of Trump already, and I'm not going to change what I said about Trump earlier, as I say, or my vote. I just know that this was a horrific act, an act that is the product of an irrational culture, I'm willing to bet.
And with that, thank you everyone for tuning in today. We're gonna continue this actually on the reality show extra, where we might talk a little bit more about about this assassination attempt, but we also have a secondary topic where we'll discuss, and I have her name here, Lucy Ledby. We actually had her, we actually talked about her in the past, about like 11 months ago. It's actually a nurse who has been charged with murdering 8 children. So we'll talk about it too. Join us for the Reality Show Extra. Again, thank you everyone for watching. Thank you, James, for joining me today. And bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Be safe.